Hello, everyone. My name is Rich, and you are watching part of Virtuacon 2014. Now, Virtuacon is the best 3 days in virtual gaming. It is ongoing and just started today, which is October 10th, 2014. We have 3 days of games, and we have a lot of tabletop RPGs that are open right now. So if you're interested, go to rpggeek.com and check it out. This is one of the features of Virtuacon. I'm very excited to have on our guest of honor. Our guest of honor is David Vincent Baker. Now, Vincent Baker created a number of tabletop RPGs, including Dogs in the Vineyard, which in 2004 was the winner of the Indie RPG Game of the Year, and also was shortlisted for the 2004 Diana Jones Award, which is a really important award. And it's probably the most important award other than the Golden Geek Awards. We'll get to that in a moment. But I just want to say, Diana Jones Award, some of the winners of that have been fantastic. Vincent created a number of other games, including Apocalypse, Game of the Year and Best Support on the 2010 Indie RPG Awards, as well as RPG of the Year for 2011 for the Golden Geeks, awarded by RPG Geek, the people who are bringing you VirtualCon. So Vincent also runs Lumpley Games, as well as the blog Anyway, and I'm very excited to bring him on. Vincent, how are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing good, thanks. Excited to be here.
Good, good. Thank you for making some time for us. Now, ahead of this interview, I did solicit some questions, and you did as well on your Google Plus stream. However, we do have Q&A turned on, so if you're watching this live, feel free to ask some questions, and we'll do our best. Alex Nguyen has already asked a question that I've got later on, so I'll get to answer that question, Alex, about Apocalypse World Dark Ages. But let's start at the beginning here, Vincent. Now, when we talk about gameplay and design, you've mentioned that in your history you played a lot of Ars Magica, as well as a number of freeform games, and that was important to your thinking about games and game design. How did your experiences playing in home campaigns influence those designs?
Well, so I started playing Ars Magica basically when second edition came out. In 1990 we started, and I played Ars Magica almost continuously through college and after college on to 2004, something like that, 2005, when we wrapped up our last to-date Ars Magica game. But by then, we had completely abandoned the rule set, the Ars Magica rule set, and we were just using the Ars Magica world, right? The setting and the Order of Hermes and all this fictional material. And we were playing a co-GM'd, freeform, cooperative game using Ars Magica, and we've been through homebrewed designs. Like I would say, oh, this isn't working, and I would design a game and it wouldn't work, and that was fine. This was in the 90s and up until about 2000, and ultimately it was me and my wife McGay Baker and Emily Care Boss, and we just played Ars Magica. Oh, but so what happened with that is we played this very intensive, very continually negotiated freeform game until we found the limits of that form. I think we found the limits of that form. Meg and Emily might tell different stories, and you should ask them. I'm sure they would tell very interesting stories. But for me, we found the limits of that form, and that is when I started designing games myself in earnest, was to say, you know, here is a thing that we can't do freeform. How do I do it? How do I bring this into the game? Here is a situation that when we tried to talk our way through it, you know, relying on our shared interest in maintaining the, oh my god, this is going to sound really jargony, maintaining the fictional integrity, the cause and effect of.
Okay. Well, it appears that Vincent may have lost his feed, so we'll wait for a moment for him to come back. Hopefully, it will be a very brief problem, because otherwise, this is going to be a very interesting interview. So I'm just going to fill a little bit of space and talk about Lumpley Games. And okay, Vincent did just drop out of the Hangout entirely. Hopefully, he'll be able to rejoin shortly. So my experience with Lumpley Games has been primarily through Apocalypse World. Some of the questions that we have coming up are talking about the different hacks and drifts or different rule sets that are using the Apocalypse World engine. Hopefully, it looks like Vincent might be coming back, so let's give a moment here. Hey, Vincent, are you back? I can see you, but I can't quite hear you. All right, hold on just a second. Let me try a chat to see if we can get Vincent. And also, while we're waiting, Gregor, I'm sorry, Gregor. I'm going to say Gregor Vuga, who wrote Saga of the Icelanders, was the person who submitted that first question. Cool. So, Vincent, I can't hear you right now. Can you check your mic and see if maybe it's trying to default off of a different mic? So since you can hear me, Vincent, I'll go ahead and start the next question, and then when we get sound back, a question about how your family and your local community have impacted your design history, and if you design with specific friends or family members in mind. Now, I've actually heard you or seen comments where you talk about we're lucky that Meg likes such awesome games, so I think that's a pretty cool thing, because evidently what Meg likes to play is what I like to play. So any luck with yeah, so Vince is going to drop out and try to come back in. I appreciate everybody's patience, and I do apologize for the technical difficulties. It happens sometimes. It's the internet. We do what we can to carry on. So just keep thinking about Virtuacon 14. You know, if I had to pull some people on to talk about their games that are coming up, there are a number of games coming up later today here on Friday, October 10th. I have another panel that's coming up. That will be in about 6 hours, and I have so many panels that I'm actually going to look up what the panel's called. I apologize, but I'm pretty sure that what it is gaming with significant others. So if you are interested in this and you game with your significant other or partner or life mate, whatever you call it, your Chewbacca to your Han Solo or vice versa, I have a number of people coming on, 2 couples, Sherry Stewart and Lowell Francis, as well as Brian Kuski and Melissa Gay are the 4 guests that we'll have on, and I game with my significant other, my wife, who won't be on the interview because she's smart. She's prettier than me, so I don't know why she wouldn't be on. Looks like Vincent might be back. Let's cross our fingers. All right. So while Vincent is working on that, I'm going to check the questions and answers and make sure those are queued up. If you're watching live, there was one question from Alex and another one from Kyle Peter. Oh, Kyle Peters announced that there's a trivia contest that's starting in 2 hours. So if you are good at trivia, which I am not, drop by The Geek and check that out. And then also, if you're looking for things to do in the interim, the Silver Unicorn is an ongoing, all-the-time hangout that you can join at any point during Virtuacon, and I've already joined there and chatted with a number of very cool folks. They even have some games and giving away little bitty prizes like badges for your RPG avatar. Vincent, I think I can hear you. Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Oh,
Fantastic.
that is awesome. Can you hear me okay? Is it too
Yeah,
loud? Is it?
you sound good. And yeah, you don't have the mic right in front of your mouth, so
Okay,
we
good.
shouldn't have any plosives, so that's good. Fantastic. So, to reiterate,
Okay,
this is
good.
a question. Are you good? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
Fantastic. All right, so Vincent, the question I queued up was how have your family and your local community impacted your design history? And do you design with specific friends or family members in mind?
Sort of. So Apocalypse World, right? It says right on the inside. It says this game is for Meg. Did you lose me again? Okay, good. It says this game is for Meg, and everybody else is just lucky. The for most of my game design history, I have designed games that Meg doesn't like. Um, I have designed like horror games. I love horror games, and I make a lot of horror games. And she doesn't like horror games very much. Um, she would deny that she dislikes Dogs in the Vineyard, but she like that's a game for me, not a game for her. And so finally with Apocalypse World, it came to me one day. I was working on a game and I was like, oh my god, Meg is gonna hate this. And it came to me, maybe I should design a game that she would like. So I did. So that was Apocalypse World. And now it's hard to say. I'm designing a game again that she will hate. But I'm also designing a game with her that I hope she will like. We'll find out. I like Emily Kerboss and Epidiah Ravishah live here in town with me, and so I design with them in mind quite a bit. We have coffee all the time and talk about game design. And so like more than designing a game that say Epi will enjoy, I'll design a game because Epi dared me to, right? Like the Sundered Land. Actually, the Sundered Land was designed around a theoretical point. That's another thing I design around a lot. Is I have an idea that I want to communicate, and the easiest and best way for me to communicate my ideas is to design games that express them. And so the Sundered Land is like that. There's a game that was designed just as an example of what we were talking about in role-playing theory or whatever you want to call it. But like, so yeah, I guess the answer is yes, sort of.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Robert Bull asked, wait, first he kind of pointed out that there's a pretty clear love of Westerns built
Sure.
into Dogs in the Vineyard. And media seems to be central to some of the ideas of Apocalypse World as well as what Meg likes.
Yeah.
So how do you approach media as inspiration when you make games? And also, how do you approach those media when you play them?
Well, when I'm thinking about a game, I watch a lot of movies, a lot of television. So I'm working on this game now that's called The Dark Age. That will be an Apocalypse World-based Dark Age fantasy game. European fantasy after the fall of Rome, before the High Medieval period, let's say. So I watched the Vikings TV show. I watched a million, like Black Death and Ironclad, and I forget what all else. Kind of dumb fantasy movies. I watched Game of Thrones.
Wait, are you saying that Game of Thrones is a dumb fantasy movie, or is it just part of the list?
Well, how much I dislike Game of Thrones is not a secret. I don't like Game of Thrones. And very often, like there was a truism at the Forge, and I think it kind of holds that bad media makes good games, bad movies make good games, bad television make good games, and I kind of feel that way about Game of Thrones. But so what I'll often do. Oh, Spartacus! I watched a ton of Spartacus. Spartacus is the best show. So what I'll often do is I'll watch a show and I'll just figure out, going into a conflict, what are the characters doing? What arena is this conflict playing out in? And for Apocalypse World, for those of you who are familiar with Apocalypse World, moves are very much about, this is the arena of conflict, and these are the directions it can go out of that arena. And so, like, I watch fiction with that in mind, on those same terms. When I'm designing a game, I say, this is a conflict, a talking conflict, where, for instance, Batiatus is trying to win Spartacus over. This is the leverage that he brings to bear. This is the directions it could go. This is the direction it did go, and these are why it went this direction. So, I think about that all the time when I'm designing a game, when I'm watching a movie, or watching TV, or reading a book even. Although I don't. I don't read. I don't often go to books to design games. I will watch a movie with my notebook and I'll write down what's happening, or watch a TV show, a TV series with my notebook. But I won't do that with a book very often. I don't know why. Did that answer Rob's question, or did I meander all over?
I have the second part there. How does media influence the way you play games?
Play games?
Yeah, you play games, right? I mean, you're not one of those people that goes in and just makes games and then that's it.
How does it? I know a lot of groups bring out pictures of actors for their characters. We don't do that. I'm trying to think of an example.
Well, let me give some context. Are you a box text kind of guy? Are you I know games are conversation, but do you ever talk about camera angle type viewpoint?
Rarely. Sometimes. Although I don't usually think in those terms. Like people I play with will certainly say things like that. We played one Primetime Adventures game, but this would have been back in 2008 or something. That was in black and white, and that was really cool. It was a supernatural investigation kind of show, and all of the demonic stuff was in color, but the world was in black and white, and so that was something we played with. But Primetime Adventures really calls on you to do that, right? Really, in a way that even Monster Hearts doesn't. When we played Monster Hearts recently, there was a little bit of that, but mostly not. And there was a little bit of, like in Movie X.
Okay.
But mostly not. Mostly it was all just, we would say the visuals and we would say what our characters did, and we would, as though we were there, as not as though it were a movie or a TV show.
Okay, cool.
Well, interesting question.
Yeah, well, I Robert Bowles asks good questions.
Hey, Rob.
Gregor, is it Vuga or is it Wuga? Do you know?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't either. Well, Gregor, designer of Saga of the Icelanders, is asking some questions about Powered by the Apocalypse games. So it's been about 4 years since Apocalypse World came out.
Yep.
There are now dozens of hacks and Kickstarters and all kinds of money. You could have had, Vincent. You could have had that. No. And a bunch of Powered by the Apocalypse games. Does that surprise you?
No.
Should it?
Surprise me? Yes, it makes me proud. It makes me very proud. In play, so people started doing that. Started designing. Okay, first of all, I want to say the word hacks. It was funny to call them hacks at the beginning. Some of them are mere hacks, and it's fine with me if the word hangs around. Like, I don't care. We can call them Apocalypse World hacks. But most of the, I would say, maybe I'm biased, but I would say that all of the published games that are powered by the Apocalypse have transcended being mere hacks. Like, all of them are bringing something new and interesting to the table. So I'm going to say hacks and I'm going to say hacking, but I really want to emphasize that most of these are not. Most of the, maybe all of the published ones, certainly. It takes so much work to finish a game that calling them hacks, like, it's funny and it's fine, but it's a little bit dismissive. So people started hacking, people started creating games based on Apocalypse World while it was still in late playtesting. Its playtesters started elaborating out different games. So I knew before I published that this was going to happen, and that it was going to happen a lot. And I could see why. I could see it coming. And so from the beginning, I set up the Barforth Apocalyptica forum as I was publishing, and I set it up with room for all of these derived games and all of these hacks. So no, I wasn't surprised at all. And I'm very proud. I'm very, very pleased with how that's worked out, and how I'm, like, super excited about the success of, for instance, Dungeon World. It's really cool to have contributed to that.
How many of the Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And Meg always says, just as you did, that money, Vincent, that money. But you should see the Apocalypse World sales spike when Dungeon World came out. I got my cut. I don't know, they didn't pay me, but every time somebody publishes one, Apocalypse World is buoyed. So don't weep for me.
Now, how many of the non-Apocalypse World powered by the Apocalypse games have you played?
I have played a couple. I've played a couple that haven't been published yet, and we'll find out whether they are. I played Blades in the Dark. I played The Regiment, and I've played Monster Hearts. I'm not sure I've played. Oh, and I've played Wolfspell. And I've played my own, of course. There are too many to play them all. How am I gonna play them all?
It's like Pokemon.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about this. It seems that few, if any, of the Powered by the Apocalypse games address making and using custom moves the way that Apocalypse World does. What do you feel about that?
Well, I know that there's the similar chapter to mine in Dungeon World, and I think that's important. I'm glad. What I mean by that's important is I'm glad that that's there. I would have been disappointed if that hadn't been there, in Dungeon World in particular. The other games, some of my Powered by the Apocalypse World games, like the Sundered. The Sundered does have a tiny little paragraph about creating further games, but nothing like Apocalypse World has. And Murderous Ghosts doesn't have anything about that. So I figure that every designer, every publisher is going to approach that in their own way. And, Apocalypse World demanded it because I could see that people were going to create games using this vocabulary, this framework. But if a designer looks at a game their game, and doesn't see that and doesn't see the need for that, then they shouldn't include that chapter or that those instructions. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
It does. It does.
I'm glad when it happens, and I want there to be a culture of promoting continuing elaboration through game design, right? But no particular game, no individual game needs to take on that responsibility. It's only when the designer and the game calls for it that it's important to me.
All right. Vincent, I'm going to jump to one of our live questions that we received from Kyle Peters.
Okay.
So Kyle asks, have you ever designed or considered designing a diceless RPG? And what are the pros and cons you think those kind of games entail?
Does playing cards count? I have never designed a diceless game. So Murderous Ghosts use playing cards. Let's not count that. Let's say that's... No, let's talk about that. So Murderous Ghosts uses playing cards because you need, for that game, you need a hand that persists across draws, right? You're drawing cards into your hand conflict to conflict. So so the random numbers that you're working with need to accumulate over time, and the game uses this for a sort of press your luck mechanic. So which dice would not have done, right? Or could have done, but in Murderous Ghosts, counting cards is even part of play. It's based on blackjack, so you don't usually count cards, but you have an idea of whether the deck is safe or dangerous, right? The deck is rich or poor based on the cards you've seen. And so for Murderous Ghosts, switching to cards was really the appropriate thing to do. The game really demanded cards instead of dice. I've never designed a game that doesn't demand randomness. But I would if one. Wait, I did. I did. My newest game, in fact, my newest two games. I made this little game this past spring called Midsummer Wood that is about a mortal who goes into fairyland at midsummer to steal a gift, immortality, or a purse that's never empty or whatever, from one of the fairies, and everybody else plays the fairy court at this masked ball. No randomization in that at all. That's a purely social game. And I designed this hilarious little game called Spin the Beetle, which does have randomization, now that I think of it, in that you spin a bottle to find out who goes next, whose turn it is. So there is randomization there. But no, in Midsummer Wood, there are no dice. Ha! I've done it.
There you go, Kyle.
Yeah, you thought I hadn't. Anyway, so the answer to the more general question is that I really want to find out what the game needs and what the game demands. And if the game works with no dice, then it should have no dice. And if it works with cards instead of dice, it should have cards instead of dice. If it works with dice, it should use dice. I like dice. I think they're fun.
Cool. Another question from our audience that's watching right now is from Alex Nguyen. Have you this Epidia Ravishall's Swords Without Master game? And if you have, what do you remember? Do you remember what your rogue's Eidolon or Simulacra was?
Oh yes, I have played it. I've played it several times. In playtesting, I don't know if I haven't played it since he published it in the magazine. But yeah, I've played it a lot. I don't remember what my rogue's eidolon was. Oh, I do. Do you know about a fire piston? Do you know what that is?
No.
If you take a length of bamboo and you put a piston in it, right, a rod with wadding in it, and you put it up against a tree and you slam it in like this, so this piston drives into the bamboo, into the hollow of the bamboo. The air heats up enough that you can get a spark, and this is enough of a spark to light a fire. I was reading a book, I can't remember where, and he describes this guy, nonfiction, slamming his fire piston against the tree and then lighting his cigarette off of it. And that is a very old fire starting technology, probably invented by accident when people were clearing out bamboo tubes to make blowguns. And that was my character's eidolon. Is that the name of it? He had one of these things, and he was kind of cool guy.
Nice.
I like that game. You should look up that game if you don't know it. Everybody should. I mean,
everybody should. Everybody watching this, if you're at all curious about Swords Without Master, you should check out Worlds Without Master.
Worlds Without Master.
Thank you. It's a Patreon that Epidai is running, so you can search for Epi. And also, if you're really want to check around on Sunday mornings and afternoons, sometimes there are pickup games of Swords Without Master happening on Google Plus over Hangouts. Oh.
Yes, Sunday morning swords, every Sunday morning.
Yep.
Follow Epidai Ravishah on G+.
I may have listened in on a game, and it was pretty neat.
I have not, but it's a pretty neat game.
All right.
In his magazine. Can I say that?
You can.
I've written.
You already did, so I give you retroactive permission.
Excellent, thank you. He's publishing my short stories, so if you're interested in my short stories, check out Worlds Without Master.
Cool. Any particular every issue or any in particular?
No. He said, "Hey Vincent, you want to write for my magazine?" And I said, "I guess." And over the next couple of months, I wrote 10 or 12 stories, something like that. And so he's spacing them out as there's room in the magazine. Whenever he needs a story, he'll.
So he's like just searching through, like, oh, I need filler. Where's that Baker kid stuff?
Right, exactly.
Fine, let's just throw that in. Okay.
But yeah, no, they're pretty fun stories.
All right, you mentioned Spin the Beetle. So Sean McCarthy has asked, so was that written on a dare or inspired by something?
Oh yeah. Do you know Anna Anthropy? She's an indie video game designer and commentator, and she is excellent. She wrote a book called Rise of the Video Game Zinesters, which is a really fun little manifesto call to arms about how everybody should make video games. Everybody should design video games. She says, she's wicked smart. She says that in the future we will design games to understand systems the way we sketch now, the way we draw diagrams to understand things now, as the technology for designing games. Anyway, excellent book, Rise of the Video Game Zinesters. I ordered it from her. She wrote on the inside, "Make me a game about a weird bug," and so I did. That was Spin the Beetle. It's a game about a weird bug. Well, it's a game about how weird bugs are, really. And how weird humans are.
Interesting. So now we'll ask some questions about being you. I'm not sure how useful that is for other people who aren't you, but they seem to be interested. Has spending so much time focused on design and RPG theory changed the way you play when you're at the table?
I don't know. Um, when you design games, you don't play for fun anymore. Um, and but that I think that was true before I spent so much time working on designing and theorizing about games. I think that I already wasn't playing for fun. I think I was already uh, playing for work. But it's very true that when you're a game designer, it's very rare that a game will sucker you the way that uh the way that a game suckers players. It's very rare that you'll fall for a game the way that you the way that I see people falling for games who aren't designers. And it's because you're always thinking about how the game is working. You're always analyzing. You're always maintaining this second awareness while you're playing of what it is the game is doing. So you can learn from it. So you can use those insights yourself. But what I've found is that those occasions where a game really does get past that analytical thinking and really gets under my skin or gets in my guts or my heart, I find that really valuable. I've come to really, really love those few games that really, really beat me, really sucker me, really, really punch me in the gut and bring me in. But no, it's true. It's true that it does change the way, like thinking about how games work changes the way you play games. I think that's true of probably all of us.
Does it
One
spoil
of the
the
things
play?
I see sometimes, sure. Sometimes knowing the probabilities uh, of the dice spoils the game. And I imagine that's true of non-role-playing games too. Usually it doesn't. Usually a game is not so shallow that seeing how it works ruins the fun of it. And also, in general, like I don't mind being spoiled on TV shows or movies or books or whatever. I don't mind knowing how a filmmaker created an effect. I don't mind any of that kind of thing in general. So when I know how a game works, that doesn't really bug me. But sometimes it does. Occasionally it does. But there are some games that it doesn't matter how well you know it, or it hasn't mattered for me how well I've known it. And there are some games where seeing how the game works really improves play for me. Is really much more exciting than going into a game kind of naive. And I don't want to be dismissive about this or anything, because I don't think that my analysis of games is better or stronger or clearer than a non-designer's analysis of games. But my analysis of games is very much about design and about what I can use, what I can learn from this game, what I can learn about game design from this game. And seriously, sometimes that helps me, like that excites me. That's one of the things I enjoy about a game, is that I can see it clearly, and it's fun anyway. I played this great game. There's this great game called Dulce et Decorum by my friend Trolls Ken Peterson, who's Danish. I played it at Festival, and it's a grueling 6-hour freeform scenario about English soldiers in World War I going over the top out of the trenches. This grueling game. But as the GM was sort of laying out the rules for us, okay. In that group of Danish freeformers, first of all, this was a relatively mechanics-intensive game. Like, Danish freeformers, as a rule, do not include many mechanics in their games. They're very social games, socially mediated rather than mechanically mediated games. But this is a very mechanically intensive game, relatively. It's not like Dungeons and Dragons or anything, but it's like Dogs in the Vineyard, say. That kind of lots of stuff on the table, lots of stuff you're manipulating, and like I think I was the one who could see that most clearly in the group that we were playing with, and so as the GM is telling us, this is oh my god, okay, how much detail should I go into? There are 12 soldiers, right? And 4 of them are our player characters, and then each of us has 2 friends. So that's these 12 soldiers. And the GM says, and here I have 12 playing cards, and 10 of them are hearts, and 2 of them are spades. And at the end of every day's action, I'm going to shuffle these, and I'm going to deal them out on the soldiers, and the spades are killed soldiers. But I could see how that was combining with this other mechanic on the character sheet and this other mechanic over here in these cards, and I said, "Oh my God, you guys, we are in for it! Like these mechanics are unforgiving. The dice, like the percentages, the probabilities of these mechanics are going to tear our guts out." And so, and they did. Oh my God, they did. And so having that appreciation where I could see that these 3 subsystems were going to work together to tear our guts out, really prepared. Like it made the game really fun. So all of this is a long-winded way to say that analyzing games does change your experience of them, but sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse.
Cool. Thank you for the example. I really kind of cements it for me. All right, we're coming up on... Oh, go ahead.
More people should play that game. That game is really good. Dulce et Decorum.
Dulce et Decorum.
Dulce et Decorum.
Okay. If you can scrounge up a link for me, I'll make sure and put that with this YouTube video so anybody can see.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can definitely do that.
As we come into near the end of the hour, I think everyone has been waiting on tenterhooks for talk about this game called where you're hacking your own stuff. Wow, you run out of ideas. No, Apocalypse World Dark Ages. So Apocalypse World Dark Ages you talked about earlier.
Yes.
Next thing on the radar. I'm going to lead off with a question from Sean McCarr a little bit to it. So. While you've been working on Dark Ages, have you been in contact at all with the Jankcast or Wheeltree folks who are designing their medieval game, the Sword, the Crown, the Unspeakable Power, or also the folks from iPodcast Magic Missile are making their own Souls of Steel? Have you had any conversations with them?
I've talked to the Sword, the Crown, the Unspeakable Power people. I haven't talked to the Swords of Steel people, although I've been sort of aware of it. The name is familiar to me. And so I don't know about Swords of Steel. I'm distantly aware of that. I kind of hope that the Sword, the Crown, and Unspeakable Power comes out, and I'm like, oh my God, that's a relief. I don't have to make that game. Whew. Thank you guys for making this game. Now I can just play it. I don't have to publish it. That's what I'm hoping. Probably that won't happen. Probably our takes on the material are different enough that their game won't make mine obsolete before mine even comes out. But crossing my fingers.
But all the monies.
I don't know if there's that. Can I talk about money for 1 second?
Please.
Forgive me. I hate to talk about money, except I enjoy it. But I would have to quit my day job. I would have to quintuple my business, and I don't think, like, as much money as maybe there is in the Dark Age, it's not going to quintuple my business. I don't care. Good for them. I hope they get $1 million.
I hope they do too. That would be really cool. So you've
And I hope they make a game that I can play instead of designing.
like you just look at the dice probabilities and bitch about that, right? No.
No, like I would love it if. I mean, I guess the concern is that we're going to make duplicate games, and that we're gonna, I don't know what, but that we're gonna cannibalize each other's audiences. That we're gonna split the vote instead of. But I don't think that's how it works. And certainly the audience for fantasy games is way bigger than the audience for my games. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that their take on it and the Souls of Steel, is that it?
Yes.
That their take on it are going to be really different and are going to find different audiences and are going to attract followings of their own. I'm excited. I think the more the merrier.
Cool. So let's talk about Dark Ages for a bit then.
All right.
So you recently finished the first round of playtesting.
Yes.
Did you discover anything surprising?
Yeah, totally. Of course. And I want to emphasize that it was a failed playtest. That the game, like when you do a round of playtesting, either you find out where you need to make improvements and where you need to clarify and where you need to build, right? Or you find out that you have gone down this dead end and where you need to back up and where you need to redesign. And it was this latter kind. There's a lot of stuff in there that worked very much how I'd hoped, and a lot of stuff in there that was interesting. But overwhelmingly, the lesson of that playtest is that I need to back off. Meg and I need to back off in these particular ways and redesign, explore a different direction, see if we can keep what was working and replace the stuff that wasn't working with stronger, clearer stuff. But yeah, so like lots of surprising things.
What's the most surprising thing that comes to mind? Where you're like, my God, this is broken. Why did I even put this out?
Why did I even put this out? Oh my God, why did I even put this out? No, I was pretty sure that nothing was that broken when I put it out. But there was definitely some stuff where I was like, wow, you mean nobody else thinks of it that way? Like this one other dude thinks of it the same way I do, and nobody else thinks about swords or whatever the way I think about them. Like so in the Dark Age, there in this game, I'm not calling them moves. They're still basic moves, but there aren't character moves. And now the character has rights. And so, for instance, some of them are things like if you're the Castellan, of the castle, when you write as Apocalypse World moves. Some of them are whole rolls. When you strike a quarry's trail, you have the right to roll wary, and on a 10 plus, you choose from these options, and on a 7 to 9, you choose from these options. Same as Apocalypse World, but some of them are just you have the right to, for instance, the blacksmith has the right to slay whoever you must for the good of all. You have this right. And there's no when you slay whoever you must roll. There's no to slay whomever you must roll. It's just you have the right. If somebody needs killing, you have the right to kill them. It doesn't say you have the ability to kill them. Like, you still have to reduce their hit points to 0 before they die. You don't get to declare them dead. And this turned out to be kind of maddening to some of the playtesters. And that's not shocking. Like, I often put maddening rules in front of people. But I was surprised at how maddening this turned out to be, where there's nothing mechanical backing up your right. You have some recourse when your right has been denied. There's a move that says when your right has been curse the heavens. And for, like, not for one playtest group or one playtester, but for a surprising, to me, number of groups, this became hour-long debates about, do you really have this right? What gives you this right? How do you know that you have this right? Does everybody else know that you have this right? Is this a good way to design a game? Is this a useful? Can we even play this game? Given that it says on my character sheet, I have the right, or the Castellan has the right to meet with the Liege Lord in council. You have the right to say to the Liege Lord, I'm going to talk to you about this. You have that right. Should I take that right? Like, I get to choose 4 rights. Is that one that I should choose? Does that mean if I don't choose it, I can't ever meet with him? Or just that I don't have the right to? Does that mean that nobody else has the right to? Only I have the right to? Into this game stymieing, play stymieing arguments where people couldn't even proceed with the game. That surprised me, because to me that seems really easy. It never slowed me down. So there's an example of something that surprised me, and something that I'm going to have to figure out. Like, I like to publish maddening rules, but this is not a time I want to publish maddening rules. This is not where I want this game to be maddening. I want it to be maddening somewhere else. And so, like, I have to figure out how to keep what was working and find a different way forward so that it doesn't become argument after argument, so that I don't have to hear over and over and over about people arguing about this on the internet. I mean, in their groups that, we tried to play your game, Vincent, but we couldn't get past the argument about how rights worked, for example.
Good example. All right. Oh, I actually did not run into that one. Neat.
That's cool.
As we get near the end here, just one last bit about Dark Ages. Why should people be psyched as you come closer to possibly releasing this game, as long as Scup or Souls of Steel or something else doesn't steal all your thunder?
And as long as I can find a way. At this point, you shouldn't. People should only be psyched about this game if they are psyched about it, like from their guts. Maybe when there's an actual game there will be something to be psyched about. Here's hoping. No, I'm selling it short. I think that a lot of historical fantasy is really pretty atrocious, and I think that this game, and here, I'm talking about Game of Thrones. Okay, so Game of Thrones is based roughly on the 100 Years' War, is it? Or the 30 Years' War? I can never remember the wars, and I can never remember Game of Thrones. Okay. I'll try one more time. You ready?
Go for it. Why should we be excited about Dark Ages?
You should be excited about Dark Ages because during the European Dark Ages, there was still a spice trade with Africa and Asia. That this, even though it was the depths of barbarity, it was a cosmopolitan, thriving, gorgeous, interesting world where people had contact with people like all across this enormous Did I lose you?
Yeah. So you got to the all across this enormous.
Yeah. So like the spice trade in Europe is super interesting, and the fall of the Roman Empire is super interesting. It's a game about the resurgence of old traditions that the Romans suppressed, while Christianity, for instance, it's not strictly historical about Christianity, but while Christianity was coming in on the heels, using the infrastructure that the Romans had laid down, throughout the Roman period in Europe, there was enormous migration all across Europe of peoples from all over Europe and North Africa and West Asia, and this sort of it's a game about a resurgence of these old ancient pagan traditions, Celtic traditions, surrounded by people from everywhere, in this entire system of competing systems even. And your character has the right, this ancient pagan right of blacksmiths, right? Blacksmiths being the bringers of the Iron Age to the Bronze Age, right? So as a blacksmith, you stand at this threshold between the Iron Age and the Bronze Age. We still worship blacksmiths when we hang a horseshoe above the door. The church bells, the iron bells, and the iron swords are what kill fairies, right? Drive demons away. So as a blacksmith, you have this ancient right to protect your community. But then this Christian knight comes into the community who feels that he has this God-given right to rule. You have a pagan-free landowner, a farmer who's farming the same land that his father and grandfather and great-grandfather back to Adam have farmed. Not Adam, but you know what I mean. Who feels that it is his right to march into the king's hall and demand justice from the king, because the kingdom is the land. The king's rule comes from the land that the king rules. Where the king has this brand new idea that his rule comes from God and is ordained by God, and he doesn't have to answer to some farmer just because the farmer thinks the cow is important. So it's a game about these, and that's why it uses rights instead of moves. That's why it's based on social hierarchies and conflict, and so that's what it's a game about. And I think that's kind of exciting, even though I'm not good at talking about it. And maybe some people will too, and maybe it will be an actual game someday.
Cool. There are a lot of people who are excited. Um,
We're excited. Now they're like, I don't know what Vincent just said. I don't know.
he said some stuff about blacksmiths and cow-loving farmers, and I don't know.
I'm sick of that game. That's what they're saying right now.
They're saying it less about the second pitch. So keep going. Fourth or fifth, people are gonna like. Ah!
Yeah.
Anyway, we have used up an hour of your time, Vincent, and I really appreciate you giving it to Virtuacon. Anything you want to talk about? Burn up about? People want to find out more. Should they go to Anyway? Is there anything else?
They should follow me on G+. That's where I do most of my talking. Sometimes things wind up on Anyway, but if there's a thread on Anyway, there have already been 3 threads about it on G+. Usually. But yeah, follow me on G+, go to Anyway. If you're interested in the Dark Age in particular, go to apocalypseworld.com, Barforth Apocalyptica, the forums there. I don't know.
It's a good boilerplate. I think we can find you.
Great.
Again, thank you so much for your time. And
sure, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It's been excellent. So it's our guest of honor for Virtuacon 2014, Vincent Baker of Lumpley Games. Again, if you're still interested and you're watching this live on Friday, we have a number of games that are going on. And just hop on RPG Geek and look for Virtuacon, or follow the community on Google Plus and find out more about all the exciting events. Thanks, and we will be signing off. Have a great afternoon.